Shalom and welcome to this week's Hebrew class. We do pray that you enjoy these and you do learn something from it and you're encouraged to keep learning Hebrew. So today's lesson comes to us from Yehuchanan, John, which in the modern Hebrew is called Yochanan. And we're in chapter 5, verses 15 to 18. So let us now begin. And we see we have the valve marking chart, and that's for anyone that's still not too familiar with the valve marks. Just gives you a bit of aid there, remembering that there are also long sounds and short, like the zere is a longer e and segol is a short e. That gives the example, and we'll see that as we go along. And of course these resources are brilliant because they will help you understand it more fully. So let us begin. And we see we're in verse 15. It's represented with a tet, which has a value of 9, and a vav, a value of 6. When we add them together, we see we have 15. Now we go through the letters. Vav, yod, lamed, kaf, so fit, that's kaf at the end of the word. Hey, aleph, yod, shin, vav, yod, gimel, dalet. Lamed, yod, hey, vav, dalet, yod, mem, safit, kaf, yod, hey, vav, shin, ayin. And now we read it. Va, ye, lek. And he went. Why is it went? Because we have a prefix, the vav and the yod, because the root of it, of course, is halak, which means to go. But with the vav and the yod, it gives it a perfect form, and therefore, and he went. It could be also he departed, but. And then we have ha-ish, the man. Remembering we're dealing with the man that was healed when he was lame, and by the pool, right? And Yeshua told him to get up and pick up his bed and walk. So we had that last week, the conclusion of that. Now we see, and he went, ha-ish, the man, va-ya-ged, and he told la Yehudim, to the Jews, ki, that Yahushua, that Yahusha. The man went away and told the Jews that Yeshua. Now I've given you a few words here. Higid, which is a verb to tell, to inform, to say. And we can see that the hey gets dropped off in this form up here. And then we have hugad, which is a verb to be told. Because if we remember that the kibbutz normally tells us it's a past tense. Then we have heged, which is a masculine noun, meaning statement, dictum, or pronouncement. So that's the noun form. And then we have Haggadah, which is a feminine noun meaning recounting, chronicle, legend, Passover text. So that's the idea of the noun form of a recounting, which is what we do at Passover as we read our Passover sort of story. Right, so now it is time to read that. Va ye lek, ha ish, va ya ged, la yahu dim, ki Yahushua. And you notice here that this was a longer sound. Va ye, and then short sound, lek. And that's what I was talking about the shorter and longer sounds. And he went, the man, and he told to the Jews that Yahusha. So now we come to part B, and we know we got a hey, vav, aleph, shin, resh, fei, aleph, vav. And we notice that they're in white, so we don't need to actually pronounce them. They're a silent letter. So it is who, which is he. And then I've added was to make it sound better. He was asher who refa'o, healed him. And we know that refa means to heal, right? And then the o at the end can mean his or him, healed him. Because we realize that in Hebrew they would just say, he who healed him. And it's sort of like obvious that he was who healed him. That Yeshua was the one that healed him is our translation. So now we can read that. Hu Ashir Refa'o. He was who healed him. And now we come to 16a, and we see we have a tet, value of 9, and a zayin, value of 7. Then we go through the letters, vav, ayin lamed, kaf, nun sofit, nun at the end of a word, resh dalet, fe, vav, hey, yod, hey, vav, dalet, yod, mem sofit, aleph, tav, yod, hey, vav, shin, ayin. Just a note, there's a dagesh in the vav, so we don't actually say the vav, we only say the vowel sound. And that's why it's oo. So we read, Ve'al ken. Now, al ken is usually translated as therefore, but if we look down here, we can see why. Al has a prep, it can mean about or regarding. It can also mean because, upon, over, but we're more interested in the beginning here, regarding or about. And then can mean so. It can also mean sincere, truthful, thus, yes, but we're thinking about it as so. So, about so, regarding so, which is another way of saying and therefore. And we have rad fu. They pursued. Again, the pronoun on the end, it's third person. And therefore we have they pursued. Ha Yehudim, meaning the Yehudim or the Jews. Et grammar marker Yahushua. That's who they're pursuing. Yahusha. Thus the Jews pursued Yeshua. And of course I've given you also radaf, meaning to chase, to pursue, and reduf, which is an adjective meaning troubled or chased. So now we can also read that. Ve'al ken radfu ha-Yehudim et Yahushua. And therefore they pursued the Yehudim, grammar marker, Yahusha. Right, and 16 we have a vav yod, vayet, kuf, shin, vav, hey, mem, yod, tav, vav, kaf, yod, ayin, sin, because the dot's on that side, hey, aleph, lamed, hey, bayet, shin, bayet, tav. Vayvak, shu, and they sought. And you could also say, and they did seek. Ha mito, his death. How do we get that? Hemit means the verb to kill, to put to death. So we've got the root in there as being mut, which means death. So you could say the death of him or his death. Ki for asa, for he did, and asa, that's a perfect form, right? So he had done or he did, right? And of course the root of it is asa, kal verb to do, to act, to make. And then it is ele, these, ba Shabbat, in the Shabbat. And the translation, pursued Yeshua from the previous verse and sought to put him to death because he did things like these on the Shabbat, the Sabbath. And so we read it. Vakshu ha mito ki asa ele ba Shabbat. And they sought his death, for he did these in the Shabbat. They thought he was breaking the Shabbat, and we know he wasn't. And then Yod has a value of 10, Zion value of 7. And we go through letters. Val Yod Ayin Nun So Fit, Aleph Tav Mem So Fit, Yod He Vav Shin Ayin Aleph Vayet Yod Pei Ayin Lamed Pei Ayin Lamed Tav Vav. And we read it. Vaya'an, and he answered. Now the root of that is Anah, which has a Hey on it, but it's dropped off because it's a weak letter. And we know it's a verb as well because it has that prefix. And he answered, O tam them, Yahushua, that's who's answering, Avi, my father, Poel, works, Peulato, his activities. So how do we get that? We see we have Pa'al is a col verb to work, to operate, and Po'al is a masculine noun meaning activities, achievements, efforts. So the last one is sort of like a noun form of it. Works his efforts, whereas this is sort of like a participle form, which could be like more verb form. He's doing something, works. His activities is a noun. And the translation, Yeshua answered them, my father carries out his action. So we can read that. Vaya'an, otam, Yahushua, avi, poel, peulato. And he answered them, Yahusha, my father works his activities. And so we come to 17b. We have an aleph, an ayin, dalet, ayin, tav, he, vav, gimel, mem, safit, aleph, nun, kaf, yod, pei, ayin, lamed. And we read it, ad, ata, until now. If we look down here, ad is a prep, means until, as far as, till, up to, such that. Then we read vegam, and also, anoki, I am. Now that could just be I. You could say I, but I'm using I am, which it often is used, and then poel means working. So you could say I work or I'm working. I used working because poel looks a lot like a participle. Whenever it has the O up there, then it's often a participle. And so I've also given you ata, which means now, currently, present time, and pa'al mean to work, to operate, and poel meaning activities, achievements, or work, which is more a masculine noun. And so we now can read that. Ad, ata, v'gam, anoki, poel. Until now, and also I am working. Now we come to 18. And we see it's represented with a yod, which has a value of 10, and a chet value of 8, and we have an aleph, zion, yod, vav, samek, yod, fe, vav, he, yod, he, vav, dalet, yod, mem, safit, lamed, vayet, kuf, shin, aleph, tav, nun, fe, shin, vav, kaf, yod. And we read it. Uz. Uz mean then. If we look down here, uz is then, at that time, then what? So then, Yosifu. Again, the pronoun on the end, they. Added. So how do we get that? It has its root in yasaf, which is a col verb to add, to augment, or to supplement. So something they did, continued to do, and they added, ha Yehudim, the Yehudim, the Jews, levakesh, to seek. And that has its root in bikesh, which is a verb to want, to seek, to demand. To seek, et is grammar marker, naf, show, meaning his, again the pronoun on the end, and we know that nefesh means life or soul. And I've even given you down here, we haven't come to it yet, ki, which means for, but ki as a conjunction can actually mean because, since, for, that, when, although. So in this case, we'll use for. In context, it helps us understand what to use. Then the Jews were seeking his life even more. And we read it. Az Yosefu ha-Yehudim levakesh et nafsho ki. And the translation, then they added the Yehudim to seek his life or his soul for. And then we have mem, lamed, veit, dalet, aleph, shin, resh, chet, lamed, aleph, tav, hey, shin, beit, tav, gimel, mem, safit, aleph, mem, resh, kaf, yod. Milvad, besides, sheer, that, chilel, he desecrated. So we should look at that. Chilel down here, it means to break an agreement, to desecrate, or to renege. He desecrated et, grammar marker, ha-Shabbat, the Shabbat. Gum also, amar, he said, remembering if you don't have a pronoun, you can add he said, ki, that. So the translation is because not only he was breaking the Shabbat, but he also said that. Now I've given you also lavad, which means alone, unaccompanied, apart from. And then as a milavad, it's a prep in addition to, besides, except. And we've used besides there, right? Now we can read that. Milvad ashir chilel et ha-Shabbat gam amar ki. Besides that, he desecrated grammar mark of the Shabbat. Also, he said that. Part C now, we have a hey, aleph, lamed, hey, yod, mem sofit, hey, vav, aleph, veit, yod, vav, yod, dalet, mem, hey, lamed, aleph, lamed, hey, yod, mem sofit. And we read it. Ha-Elohim, the Elohim, who, he or he is, Avi, his father, Vayigame, and he compared. So where do we get that from? Dima, which is a PL verb to conceptualize, to visualize, to compare. And dama is a kal verb to resemble, to appear, to simulate, to look alike, to be similar to. And then demut, which is a feminine noun meaning likeness, shape, figure, image. And that's like a noun form. So you can see where it comes from. And he compared, or he was compared, le Elohim, to Elohim. And often that's translated, and he compared himself, to give us the impression that he was the one doing the comparing. Also, he said that the Elohim is his father and compared himself to Elohim. Right, so now we can read that. Ha-Elohim, who, Aviv, Vayidame le-Elohim. The Elohim, he is his father, and he was compared to Elohim. Now we come to our revision, And hopefully we've gathered some of that and understood some of it. And we're going to see just how much we understand. First, the tet has a value of 9. The vav has a value of 6. So 9 and 6 is 15. And then we have va-ye-lek, and he went ha-ish, the man, va-ya-ged, and he told la Yehudim, to the Yehudim, ki, that Yeshua. And he went, the man, and he told to the Jews that Yeshua, who he, and he was, Ashir, who refa'o, healed him, or his healer. He was who healed him. And then we have a tet, value of 9, Zion, value of 6. So if we go 9 and, Zion is a value of 7. So it is 9 and 7, giving us 16. Ve'al ken, and therefore, Rad fu, they pursued, ha-Yehudim, the Jews, et Yahushua. And therefore they pursued the Yehudim, the Jews, Gramamaka Yahushua, or Yeshua. And so now we read, as we continue with verse 16, They bakshu, and they sought, or were seeking, ha-mito, meaning his death, ki, for asa, he did, ele, these, Shabbat, in the Shabbat. And they were seeking his death, for he did these in the Shabbat. Now, Yod 10, Zion 7, so we know we're in 17. Vaya'an, and he answered, Otam them, Yahushua, Avi, my father, Poel, which could be works, Peulato, his activities. And he answered them, Yahushua, my father works, his activities, until ata, now. Vegam, and also, Anoki, I am Poel, working. Until now, and also I am working. And then we have Yod, value of 10, Chet, value of 8. So we know we're in 18. Us, then, Yosifu, they added. Ha-Yehudim, the Jews, levakesh, to seek, et Gramamak, nafsho, his soul, ki, for. And sometimes that can be used as because. Then they added the Yehudim to seek Gramamak, his life or soul, for. And then we have milavot, which is besides, and therefore you could use there as because besides. Sheer, that, Chilel, he desecrated, et ha-Shabbat, the Shabbat, Gam also, Amar, he said, ki, that. Besides that, he desecrated the Shabbat. Also, he said that, ha-Elohim, the Elohim, who, he, and you could say he is, Aviv, his father, Vayidameh, and he was compared, or he compared himself, Lelohim, to Elohim. The Elohim, he is his father. And he was compared to Elohim. Or he compared himself, because he's the one speaking. They're talking about what he said. That's why they translate it that way. But literally it is and he was compared to Elohim. And so finally we come to our vowel markings again. And we do this simply to make us very aware of how to use the vowels. We have a ka, mats, and even in the sound of the name we get an idea that the A sound is the first sound that's made, and it's a longer sound. So it's ka, that's the longer A sound. And then we have pa, tak, zere, longer E, se, go, shorter E, shiva, which is your syllable breaks, and cholam, that's the O sound, shuruk, the short U sound, and kubutz, a longer U sound. Then we have a combination of shava and segol. It's called the kataf segol. Then we have chirik, like the I sound, kataf patak. Again, it's the shava followed by the shorter A sound, and then we have kataf kamats, and after the shava we get the longer A sound. And so we come finally to repeat the resources because they are so vital that we fully understand the root words, and it's a great resource to learn, to practice. And so we would just pick a few of these to refresh our minds at what the value of them is. Zadeh has a value of 90, Samek 60, Mem 40, Kaf 20, Tet 9, Zion 7, Vav 6, Dalet 4, and Vayet 2. So just picking some random ones just so that we try to refresh our minds. We're not thinking in a sequence, but rather just grabbing something. Iron, its value is 70. And so that brings us to the conclusion of our lesson for this week, and we hope that you are blessed. And we do pray that you continue with your journey into the Hebrew, because it is the holy tongue, the Lashon Kodesh. That's what it's called in Hebrew. And we just pray that you are blessed and that Yeshua will be your joy and peace in everything you do. And may the peace of Yahweh be with you this week. Goodbye.